On this episode of the Ask Mike Reinold Show, we talk about our favorite current journals that we're reading.
The Ask Mike Reinold Show. Helping people feel better, move better, and perform better.
Before we get to the podcast, I wanted to make sure you knew about my free online course on the Introduction to Performance Therapy and Training. If you want to learn how to get started optimizing and enhancing performance, this is the course for you. Head to mikereinold.com/performance to sign up today. Welcome back, everybody, to the latest episode of the Ask Mike Reinold Show. We're here up in Boston, Champion PT and Performance, answering your questions. Anything you want to talk about, sports PT, sports performance, career advice, anything you want to talk about, head to mikereinold.com, click on that podcast link, and you can fill out the form to ask us more questions. Let's see. Today we have Jonah Monlock, Dewesh Podell, Dan Pope, Kevin Coughlin, Lenny Macrina, and Dave Tilley here answering your questions. Len, who do we have for students here today? And let's not try to use the whole episode with this. No offense.
Yeah, they're like
There's
gremlins.
a lot of them. I see a lot of them on camera.
They got wet and multiplied. For students, exactly. I'm aging myself. My students, our students, we have Tyler Farr. He's somewhere back there from Pacific University in Oregon. Oregon, that's what we say in Boston, but it's Oregon. I get it. Preston Chow from San Diego State University, Tony Gwynn. We have Steve Mills from East Tennessee University in Eastern Tennessee. Maddie Hill, UAB, go Blazers. Go Blazers, tough loss to Tulane last weekend. Not to date the video. Christian Harkey from High Point University. Don't know much about it. I know it costs a lot of money. And Kylie Robb from Southern Georgia, the home of George Davies, our friend, mentor, amazing person.
If a UAB football score dates our episode, I think that's a very small demographic.
Yeah.
That probably,
but right. My wife and me.
Yeah, go Blazers. I love it. Awesome. All right. What do we have for a question today? And I'm excited here to see how the students kind of handle this.
Delegate. Right? Yeah.
Because we have more students than questions this batch. And we're going to see the ones that step up, right? We're going to see the ones. So I think whoever goes first is usually one of our least favorite, like the ones we like the least. But who wants to go first, guys?
Yeah, I knew Preston. I knew it was Preston.
Who's the alpha? Maddie.
Oh, you just delegated it to Matt. That was fake.
That
All
was
right,
good
so no, I was kidding. We love our first one. All right, what's up, Maddie?
Jan from Oklahoma. As a recent PT grad, I want to stay on top of the research. What are your go-to journals that you read every month?
Awesome. Thanks, Maddie. I love this question here and there, and I think we get forms of this question all the time, but it's always good to just kind of talk about our currents, right? And it keeps evolving. And I think my opinion changes probably every couple of years or so. So I think it's a good one. Also, welcome Mike Scaduto to the podcast. Who wants to go first? I actually think this is great too. We got a couple of the strength coach crew from Champion here too, so we can hear from their perspective from the strength and conditioning principles too. But Dave, you want to start?
Well, I don't read research, so I'm going to pass the question. I'll make mine quick. Is that there are journals that have authors I like who are constantly publishing. So the Journal of Elbow and Shoulder, I forget there's one
Surgery.
more in there. Yeah.
Surgery.
JOSPT, ISJSPT, kind of like stuff in our field that's pretty normal. The Hip Arthroscopy Journal, because a lot of people tend to publish like new stuff in there. So yeah, mostly like the high quality gold standard, like joint based ones. So shoulder and elbow, hip. And then I tag authors and I follow them when their work comes out. So if somebody publishes something new, it'll give you an alert like Ellen Casey published blah, blah, blah on something. And so, yeah, that's what I do is like 4 or 5 journals. I would say I constantly have the table of contents, content shipped to me in email. And then I go through real quick, scan some of the abstracts, take 2 or 3 out, download or save those for later. And then I'll just have a little folder and then I'll just follow authors.
Of thousands of papers that you haven't read.
Yes. I haven't read a research paper since I graduated. So.
Just put them all in Chat GPT now, and then you're good. Just ask a question here.
The article summarizer is pretty good.
You'll be fine. But so I like that. I think what Dave just did without telling us what he did right there is he took probably, 2 very sports PT-ish journals, right? and then he combined them with topics that I think he likes and enjoys and sees the most of in the clinic, which is shoulder, elbow, and hip. Right. So he took two specialized journals for what's important to him. So I like that. So I'm writing these down. Maybe I'm going to include a list. I'll put a list in the show notes of everybody's, which will be helpful. So I got journal, shoulder, elbow, JSPT, IJSPT, and then hip arthroscopy. So
Hip
You
preservation.
can't go with, you have to go AJSM, you have to go
Len,
Sports Health Journal.
It's not your turn, Len. We didn't.
Oh, wait, no, we had turns. It was just
Did
like,
you want to
jump
go
in.
next? You can go next.
We just jump in. We just jump in.
All right, Len, good. All right, Len, kid.
Lenny, what do you think?
I mean, AJSM is like classic. Like, if you want to stay with the doctors and what they're reading, you go AJSM. You have to. Sports Health Journal is an amazing journal. It kind of covers multiple disciplines: athletic training, primary care, medicine, related to sports and physical therapy. So you get that, and you know what? It's all included if you are a Sports Academy member of the APTA. So
that's true.
For $60, going up a little amount of money soon.
Touchy subject. Len.
Okay. I'm not.
Weren't you the treasurer? Shouldn't you know how much the dues are?
At this point, I have no idea what happened after I left. You never know. But I think you get all that. So anyway, but I think those other journals are valuable as well. Sorry,
I like that.
I jumped in. Yeah,
I would agree. I mean, AJSM is probably like the king still, right? So I like that.
I would say so. British Journal of Sports Medicine. You got to go over to England, Britain, and that's another classic as well.
Love it. All right. What else? Anyone? Let's keep going on the PT side. Kevin. Sorry, Kevin.
Yeah, I was just gonna reiterate what Lenny was saying, because I wonder if all of our listeners know that, like, if you're a member of the APTA and then specifically the sports section, I mean, you have access to JOSPT, you have access to IJSPT. So, I mean, that's like a no-brainer just to kind of
sports health
and sports health. So just to, look at those monthly and kind of see what's coming out and what content is being published that relates to what you're treating in the clinic. And then I would just say the other, aside from those regular monthly things, I've done what you've recommended in the past and just, put some keywords into PubMed and have them notify you when something you're interested in is published. And then what's been really helpful is working with Dan on Fitness Pain Free is just, I think Dan's approach is pretty cool. I'm sure there are regular journals that he's looking at, but if he's reviewing a specific joint for some content that he's making, we're doing a lot of research about that joint. So right now we're doing some knee stuff. And if you have something that you're constantly trying to learn, that can kind of guide what you're reading as well. I think the only thing with that is when you get into that, you just want to make sure you're looking at, journals with a decent like impact factor. There's a lot of predatory kind of journals out there. So sticking with the big names, I think, is always safe. And then I think what Dave said was great. Through the process, you find authors you really like. And that's good too, to just follow what they're publishing. And, they tend to be in a few of the same journals over and over again. So I think that works well for me. So, yeah.
That's awesome. I agree. My only negative is there's a J.R. Andrews that is prolific in COVID research right now. And man, that has messed up my email feed. I've been getting a lot out of that. So we used to, just have James R. Andrews with all his specific research that he'd be a part of with ASMI. But for some reason, that email is getting girthy. So congratulations to the other J.R. Andrews. You're doing a bunch of great work. Thank you. But it's messing up my PubMed feed. So, but anyway, Mike Scaduto, what do you got?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, obviously we just listed off a ton of journals. I think as a new grad, that can kind of be overwhelming if it's like, hey, go read all of these journals. They don't even know where to start. Like what articles are relevant. They're trying to find things that apply in the clinic. I think if you can find, a few people like Dan Pope, Fitness Pain Free, that do a deep dive and synthesize that research, point you in the right direction, then if he's citing a study, go read that study. In one of his online courses, the shoulder course for you, Mike Reinold, and obviously the knee course for Lenny, Dave, like we're all putting out content. It's not just us. There's tons of other people that are doing this in physical therapy. So I think as a new grad, if you're feeling overwhelmed by just flipping open a journal or going online and trying to scroll through the table of contents. I think finding someone that can synthesize those articles, point you in the right direction, and then go read the research study to further back up your knowledge. I think that's a good way to go about it.
I love it. That's great. Dan, did you weigh in anything? Did we miss anything from your perspective? Anything else that any other journals you like to read?
Yeah, I think you guys really hammered all the ones that I kind of regularly read. But the other part is that, and Kevin talked about this, is that I've even moved away from just looking at specific journals every month. I still do that, just not as much as I used to. And I have a very different business model than most physical therapists coming out. So I'm just reviewing basically the pathologies I see most in depth, just because I want to do a great job with that. The one thing I will add, and Mike already noted to this, is that I try to do a lot of research about the patients that are in front of me. So I have a patient with like hip dysplasia or something that I'm not really smart about, really know the research. I'll go read a few articles really quickly. And it's interesting because there's more research coming out with things like shockwave. We have a shockwave machine, PRP. If I have a patient that has a question, sometimes I just bring out my phone and just Google it on the spot, just because I think as physical therapists, we have a bit of a superpower, meaning that we know how to read research. The average person doesn't. They just look at these research studies and are like, what the heck are these words? I don't understand this. But when we look at that, we can say like, okay, it does look like this is something that's helpful. Maybe we should try that. And the rate at which research comes out, it's just so hard to stay on top of everything. So if you have a specific question, patients in front of you, you can look it up and come up with a really quick answer. So I tend to find myself doing that more and more.
Now, do you run to the bathroom or your car to do that, or do you do that in front of the patient? Like,
no, I just ignore them. I say, please stop speaking while I assess my phone.
No,
but I will say, like, hey, let's look real fast, because sometimes it takes 30 seconds. I'm like, there's your answer right there. This is like a good option for you, And
again, like a lot of people would be like, I don't know. I think a lot of early career professionals, like, I think they're so, man, they're just so caught up in like wanting to feel like the expert and want them to feel like I don't know. It's not like a lack of being humble, because that's not the right word, but it's more just afraid of looking dumb, maybe. But I think if you Google something with a patient together and you make it collaborative and you're their concierge, they love that, and you're helping them digest that, and that's an invaluable resource that people don't understand, and it shouldn't be something you should avoid, right? But Dave, did you have something to add?
Yeah, just one more thing. I think Kylie and I were talking about this yesterday. It's like it's really overwhelming to try to learn so much and be up to date in the literature, and like every joint and every condition. Like when you are in the clinic in a real world job, your schedule is all over the place. You have back, knee, shoulder, hip. It's like really overwhelming to try to learn everything. So I think it's just important to say that as seasoned clinicians, like we're constantly looking up stuff that I haven't treated in a while. The perfect example being is, I had a patient last week or a month ago that started with like, a pretty severe scoliosis curve, like 30 degrees. And so I've treated a bunch of scoliosis that were, non-op and were fine under 10 degrees. And you really don't like do a ton for the actual curve. But this is the first case I've treated in probably like 3 to 4 years. That was like a significant curve. And so like I had to look up a ton of stuff on Schroth exercises and things I hadn't done in a long time. I watched a bunch of videos and like old textbooks that I had that I've had from a while. I had to go back and like kind of brush myself up a while. So I don't think it's like a bad thing to not think you have to learn every single joint all the time. I think that's really frustrating for new grads. So like, don't be afraid to treat like the stuff in the clinic, keep up as you go. And then maybe like, all right, this month is like hip labral tear month. I'm just going to like one article on hip labral tears every week or two. And then I'm going to try to keep up with my clinic caseload as it is. But yeah, I spent like 3 hours on one Sunday trying to just get myself up to date on Schroth exercises, because the person's father was a pretty well-researched person. I want to make sure I had the stats on my mind.
Yeah, I love it. It's a great use of it. I mean, there's probably like 4 journals that I read the table of contents every month, and I shouldn't, you get those table of contents emails now, but they're just publishing them like, continuously now. So like, I still use like a news feed reader that can see all these things, but there's only like 3 or 4 that I look at, and it just takes 10 seconds to scan the table of contents for the month and just see if there's anything interesting. But I think it's important to stay on top of those. But let's hit strength and conditioning real quick. Who wants to go first? Jonah, what do you like to read as a strength and conditioning coach?
I think the 2 kind of main journals that I end up reading articles from would be the Journal of Strength and Conditioning Research and then the International Journal of Strength and Conditioning. But kind of to second what Scaduto was saying, I think there are a lot of people who do a very good job of synthesizing some of the research these days and kind of pointing you in the direction of high quality research articles that might be worth your time reading. One example, there's a coach, I believe his name's like Ramsey Naheem, but Applied Performance is his website, and he sends out twice a week. He summarizes a research article, which as a new grad, I think can teach you how to effectively read research, but then also make it easy to digest a couple articles a week in a very time efficient manner, which when you are a new grad, you probably do have a lot of different things you're trying to learn. So if you're spending 20 minutes reading a bunch of different journal articles, might not end up being that effective of a use of your time. And then the other thing I would say is I found on LinkedIn that a lot of people, if you follow smart people, they tend to share articles that they've found very useful, which I think could be a great way to learn of who are these seasoned clinicians, what are they learning about right now? Okay, I'm going to go read that article.
Yeah, that's great advice. I think that's important. So, all right. So, journal strength and conditioning, international journal strength and conditioning. Dewey, anything else from you?
Yeah, I would say mine's a little bit more like strategy, kind of similar to what Dave was talking about. I'm big, and I kind of learned this from you, Mike, is like chunking out my learning so that if I'm attacking a topic that I'm trying to learn, that's when I'm focusing a lot of my research based on that. So like when I was in my like speed course that I was enrolled in, I was, looking at a lot more research that was, speed based. So I kind of chunk that. If I'm learning a little bit more physiology, I might get into a little bit of like Andy Galpin's work and, dive into stuff like that. So I definitely chunk things out a little bit more. As far as like the places that I'm getting the emails monthly from, it's the International Journal of Strength and Conditioning, like Joanna said, and the NSCA's Strength and Conditioning Journal. But I'm definitely a lot more of a fan of like chunking out, attack it, learn a ton, zoom back out, apply it.
Yeah, and that's an overall great strategy. And I think like, Dan Pope's approach with Kevin right now, like, is like, let's tackle one topic and tackle it though, right? Like that thing's not getting up, right? They're going to keep it down on the mat. So like that's kind of their thought process behind like what they're doing right now. Remember this though, if you're only looking for certain research and that's it, you're going to miss some potential light bulb moments, right? And I'll kind of leave it with that, right? So meaning like, if you're only looking for elbow injuries, right, because that's what you're interested in, there might be a great article in AJSM on a current concepts and something that you didn't even know you were interested or something like that. So like, I would say like, you gotta try to stay a little current, and follow a few journals and not just topical things, just to, keep interested. If you read one journal article a month, right, that's not something specific to what you do. You're just trying to get that 1% better, every day, get 1% better. And I think that's a huge step and it's a good habit to have. I do want to add two other ones, or maybe technically three other ones. JSPT now has more than just JSPT. They have JSPT Open, which is open access, which means it's free and you can access it. So you can access some of those articles now. That's going to probably grow in the next few years. And then very similarly, AJSM has OJSM. So open access again for them. And those are valuable resources for people that don't have subscriptions. And then lastly, AJSM also has VJSM now, which is a video version. So how cool is that? You get to watch like surgical videos like every month, like on some cool new topics. So I'll put this list together in the show notes and put them together because I think it's valuable. And I think that's a good one here. Notice here, like that's a fair amount of journals, right? You don't have to read them all. This is at least like our hit list of the best journals that we think are reputable for you to follow. So anyway, great stuff, guys. Thanks so much. If you have questions like that, head to mikereinold.com, ask us some more questions, and please rate and subscribe us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast. And we'll see you on the next episode.